Welcome to the Modem Assyrian program on ANB Sat. My name is Carmen Morad. We are thrilled today to have a very special guest, Chief Jeff Dirkse.
Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Dirkse, candidate for Sheriff for Stanislaus County in 2018. I want to take an opportunity for you to get to know me. I'm a lifelong resident of Stanislaus County. Graduated from Turlock High School in 1990 and the United States Military Academy at West Point in 1994. I served 5.5 years on active duty with the U.S. Army in the 101st Airborne Division and 2nd Ranger Battalion. In 1999, my family and I returned to California, where I ran my family's farming operation east of Denver. After the September 11th terrorist attacks, I knew that I would return to service. I commanded a California Army National Guard infantry company in Iraq in 2005. When I came back, there was a strong recruiting push for law enforcement, and after one ride-along, I had found my new profession. After graduating from the police academy in 2007, I began my career with the Sheriff's Department. I've served as a patrol deputy, 2 different detective assignments, both sting and our ag crimes unit, as a patrol sergeant, an internal affairs sergeant, and after being promoted to lieutenant, I now serve as the police chief for the city of Patterson, where I've been for almost 3 years. As most of you know, Sheriff Adam Christensen is going to retire at the end of his current term. He has endorsed me to be the 22nd Sheriff of Stanislaus County. I am honored by this opportunity, and I look forward to serving you. The Sheriff's Department is a strong organization made up of almost 700 men and women who serve our community. With a budget of $105 million, we are the largest single general fund expenditure in Stanislaus County. This is a position of great responsibility. And I would submit to you that my leadership experience, both in the military, in private business, and here at the Sheriff's Department, has prepared me for this opportunity. I know that many of you have questions about who I am and what I stand for. I would ask you to check out my website or follow me on Facebook. And feel free to contact me via email, message, or cell phone if you would like to know more. I look forward to your support, and I look forward to serving you as the next Sheriff of Stanislaus County. Thank you.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Carmen. I appreciate it.
We are especially thrilled to have our Chief of Police from City of Patterson, but also from the Sheriff Department of Stanislaus County.
That's correct.
I want to begin by first of all thanking you for taking time out of your extremely busy schedule to be here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Today we're going to talk about your background, your achievements and accomplishments, and what has prompted you to serve. But I do want to thank you for your service to this country. You have served honorably.
Thank you.
You are originally from here.
I
You
am.
went Turlock High School.
Yep. Graduated in 1990.
Awesome. Let's talk about what has prompted you to be in law enforcement and to serve the community in the way you have and that you continue to serve.
My whole adult life, I've really been drawn to kind of that idea of public service and so on, which is what originally led me to go to West Point and serve in the Army. When I went there, I actually expected to do 20 or 30 years in the Army before I retired. And then as life goes on and you wind up getting married and having children, moving around every year just doesn't work so well to raise a family. And so my wife and I moved back to Turlock in 1999, and we farmed. My family has a ranch east of here, and we ran the farming operations. And it really wasn't me. There was something missing. And so after the September 11th terrorist attacks, I ultimately knew I would end up back in public service. And I did. In 2005, I commanded an infantry company in Iraq. And while I was there, so it was a National Guard unit, so most of my soldiers had civilian jobs, and many of them were in law enforcement, and a lot of them encouraged me to look at law enforcement as a profession when I got back. And when we did get back, that coincided with a huge recruiting push for local law enforcement. They were looking for more people, and I did one ride-along, and I came home and I told my wife I found my new profession. It's sort of the perfect blend for me of a local stability. I mean, I stayed here in my hometown. I didn't have to move. Yet it allowed me to serve the community in kind of the way that I had been trained as an adult, both at West Point, but then in the military itself. And it's that idea of giving back, but I would say that I'm by nature a protector. As far as my personality, I am the guy that wants to go help people and protect them from the bad things that happen in this world. And so it all came together. Law enforcement was not a lifelong goal of mine, but with all of those things that came together, here I am, and it's the perfect fit for me.
That's a great characteristic to have when you're in law enforcement, to protect.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the Sheriff Department and your tenure with the Sheriff Department and, of course, the Police Department. You mentioned that, we talk about September 11th a lot, that infamous dark part of our history. It impacted many people that I've talked to.
Yes, it did.
In law enforcement and also in government officials.
Mm-hmm.
What did it do to you that prompted you to do something about it and to serve?
So like most mornings I get up, I have my coffee, I watch the news, I read the newspaper, and morning of September 11th I was doing exactly that. And as I'm watching whatever news show I was watching, they cut to a live report from New York, and the first plane had already hit, and as I'm watching it, the second plane had hit the second tower, and I remember I went upstairs, my wife was still asleep, and I woke her up and I said, we've been attacked. Given my military kind of education and experience, I mean, I knew immediately what had happened, as did many others. And that day, I was supposed to go and pick up almonds, which I did. And while that is, farming is clearly a great profession in and of itself, all of my friends and former colleagues in the military, we still had pagers in those days, and their pagers were going off and they were having to go to work. And I had to go pick up almonds. And kind of in light of what I just said in terms of that whole protector thing, I kind of thought, what I'm about to go do is irrelevant in the grand scheme of life. Whether I pick up these almonds or not, I need to do it to pay my bills, but at the end of the day, no one is really going to care. And so as the day went on, I ended up at a friend's house, and we were actually at his parents' house watching the news, and he told me later, he said, I looked at you, and given the look on your face, he said, I knew that you would be gone. And it took a couple of years as I looked at various options as to how I would return to service. But anyway, I ended up in the National Guard and commanded a company in Iraq.
Thank you for sharing that very candid view.
It's one of the few things that will make me emotional.
Oh, yes, it is very emotional. And it's part of the value system that you have that our viewers and members of the community need to know about. When we are looking for someone to lead us and protect us, it's very important to get to know them a little bit better. And that's why it's so important that you've agreed to be on this program, is because the premise of this program is civic engagement and to inform and educate members of the community, to get to know our elected officials a little bit, to get to know what their values are, what they stand for, and you made that very clear, and thank you for doing that.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you.
Let's talk about Stanislaus County. Let's talk about our demographics, and I'm going to give some numbers out there for our viewers. Approximately 500,000, give or take 1 or 2%. The Sheriff Department having a budget of, is it 105, 118 million dollars?
The next budget, the 18-19 budget, is at 118 million.
For Stanislaus County.
For Stanislaus County. It's the single largest general fund expenditure for the whole county.
That says a lot. That says a lot. And also employees of over 700.
Yes.
So that's quite a task for a sheriff.
Yes, it is.
For leadership, for collaboration with police, with other law enforcement agencies. Not all the cities in Stanislaus County actually work on their own with the Sheriff Department. They have police departments, and some actually share. City of Patterson, you are the chief of police.
That's correct.
In the city of Patterson. So tell us how demographics and how the different dynamics in the county affect how the Sheriff Department works and how law enforcement works.
Well, they have a very significant impact on how we do business and how we interact with the public. Based on the culture, based on kind of the socioeconomic strata of a particular neighborhood or community, we have to be cognizant of that. We have to recognize what it is. Some have concerns with law enforcement based on their personal history, their community's history, and we have to bridge that gap of trust with them. I'm a fan of diversity, but not solely for the sake of diversity. I don't like, we need to fill a stat of a man, a woman, a race, a religion. But every time that we get someone from a different community, a different background, ethnicity, religion, whatever the case may be, they bring something else to our team and they allow us to connect with whatever community it is that they represent. Recently, 3 or 4 months ago now, I had a conversation with the Sikh community, and in speaking with them, obviously they are very visually different for those who practice the traditional forms of the Sikh religion with the turban and the beards. Yet we don't have anyone in our department who looks like that. So if we have to go to an incident involving that community, our ability to bridge that gap is probably hindered. So, my challenge back to that community was I would love to see more active practicing Sikhs in law enforcement, specifically in the sheriff's department. And my promise back to them was that we would accommodate their religious beliefs into our uniform and grooming standards. Because, again, we go to an incident where we have to deal with members of that community. If I have someone from their community, they're going to be able to engage much better than I might be able to.
That's very true. You're absolutely right. It's that acknowledgement, that understanding. 35,000 approximate Assyrian Americans in Stanislaus County, most of them living in Turlock, where we are today. It is really important to have representation as a cross-section. You just mentioned diversity isn't just for the sake of diversity, but it has to do with communication. It has to do with understanding a community, and the best way to bridge that is to have communications, to have relationships, to establish relationships, and for you to come to the Assyrian American Civic Club, for example.
Yep, absolutely.
To come to our events as other elected officials have. To get to know us a little bit about our unique history, about our unique identity, especially when you served in Iraq. Thank you for your service.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for all that you've done. But Iraq is our ancestral homeland, and you know firsthand all that has happened there.
Yes, I do.
You have an understanding of the very unique history and how it's important for us as Assyrian Americans living here in Turlock to really appreciate the freedoms that we have in this country, but also preserve our heritage, preserve our ancient way, whether it's our culture, language, and there's so much that we need to preserve, but also acculturate as become good Americans, as citizens.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that culture, I mean, like every other culture, that is what makes America great and makes America so unique. The fact that we can appreciate and enjoy every different culture out there, Assyrian, Sikh, Hispanic, the various European cultures that we have embraced, Asian, the Eastern Asian, Chinese, Japanese, whatnot, that is the fabric of America. And it's a patchwork or a quilt. And, growing up here in Turlock, I would actually tell you that probably as a kid, I didn't even really realize the difference between Assyrians and anyone else because, I don't know, when you're 10 years old, no one even really pays attention to it. And so, but obviously as I've grown older and understood better, it's just been a great community that we have to continue to engage with. And as you can see, obviously the Assyrian community has become involved. The police chief for the city of Turlock is a prominent member of the Assyrian community.
Chief Nino Amirfar, of course, yes.
City council members, former supervisors. So all of that, I mean, that shows their civic involvement, and I, for one, appreciate that.
Thank you. We're very proud of that. The fact that we have not only our ancient history, but our modern history as well, and how important it is to keep it going and, like I said, give back to a community that has embraced us, especially in Turlock. Turlock in the entire Central Valley is very unique, with the fact that, you know, over a century of Assyrian settlement here. And where we are today, it has a history of over 72 years old of Assyrian Americans being in the Civic Club, where it's become a community center, really, for all other events. As you saw today, there's an event for Turlock High School here.
I think my high school prom was here.
See, there you go.
In 1990.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the Sheriff Department. Our current sheriff, Adam Christensen, he will not seek re-election.
That's correct.
That means literally there's going to be a new sheriff in town.
No matter how you slice it, there will be a new sheriff.
So the Sheriff Department, as we briefly touched upon, is a very important sector within what goes on in this county. What is the official mission statement of the sheriff and the responsibilities of the sheriff?
So the Sheriff's Department, our goal and our mission is to protect, realistically, the entire county. Even though there are cities within the county that have their own police departments, we are still responsible for the entire county, and especially those unincorporated parts of the county that, you know, are not within the city limits. Our contract cities, Patterson, Riverbank, Houston, Waterford, and then we also serve as we run the jail. So anyone, regardless of where they're arrested in Stanislaus County, they will ultimately end up in our custody for at least a few hours, if not longer. So we are here to protect the entire 1,500 plus square miles of this county. And we have it's a very large organization. Over 730 employees, except our current vacancies, which is our number one challenge, you know, and a huge budget. And that, well, we have that huge budget. We are the number one general fund expenditure, simply because public safety is really the first and foremost thing on the minds of both the supervisors and obviously us at the Sheriff's Department.
So recently I was at the grand opening of a new jail, county jail. 33 years in the making, millions and millions of dollars of grants and different expenditure. As beautiful as it is, it's still a jail.
Yes, it is.
So let's talk about the importance. It's called the REACT Center,
Yes.
and I know it means different things into it. Let's talk about the importance of one of the objectives of the Sheriff Department, which is to rehabilitate,
Yes.
to reduce recidivism. That's a hard one to say, but it really is important to understand what the crime trends in our county are. And with your experience with different capacities that you've had, what do you see as the highest crime trend in Stanislaus County that our viewers should be informed about?
There's actually a few different ones. Well, first and foremost, we all know that we are regularly the car theft capital of America, and that is not slowing down. Even though Albuquerque technically beat us out last year, we are in the top tier for car theft. So, and car theft in many ways is one of the most preventable crimes. Certain makes and models are easier to steal than others, and obviously newer cars are typically harder to steal than older cars. But car theft is still quite preventable. A lot of times people will leave their keys in there, or they could do something just like install the club, you know, that steering wheel locking device, which we give away for free, simply to prevent those kind of things. And everybody has to understand that they could be the victim of it. My nephew's car was stolen out of his driveway, I think on Sunday night, earlier this week. So, I mean, it is everywhere. And it is prevalent, and we are very aware of it. So like the Sheriff's Office specifically, we participate in the Stanislaus County Auto Theft Task Force, specifically designed to address auto theft. Other trends, obviously, we have gangs in this area. And gangs are, they can be a serious threat. Now, I'm also remind people frequently that if you're not a member of a gang, the probability of you getting caught up in gang violence is pretty slim, but it is still probably the #1 driver for crimes of violence in our county. That coupled with drug activity. And the two often go hand in hand, not always, but often. Gangs and drugs are tied together. Many of our recent homicides have either been gang-related or drug-related or both. So again, if you are not involved in one of those criminal enterprises, then you're probably fairly safe. And then the other one that we in law enforcement specifically hear the most about is homelessness. Clearly, it impacts the entire, well, every city in this county, the county as a whole, this region, the entire state. California, unfortunately, leads the nation in homelessness. And homelessness specifically is not a law enforcement problem. It is a community problem, and it is something that the entire community has to address. Being homeless is not a crime, and as law enforcement, we don't arrest people for being homeless. We are sensitive to their plight. Now, many homeless, if not most, suffer from some level of mental health issues, addictions, or both, and that underlying situation causes challenges for them as far as getting back into kind of normal contemporary society. But homelessness is not a crime. The entire community has to come together to solve that. And realistically, most other things, to include gangs, gangs require a community solution, not just a law enforcement one. Now, obviously, by definition, a criminal street gang is committing crimes, so we have a more prominent role in addressing that one, but almost all of those require full community involvement for us to solve them.
We were talking about the REACT Center, the new jail in Stanislaus County. Give us a little bit more information. I know it was a big achievement for the Sheriff Department to finally have this new beautiful center.
So the Sheriff's Department, so the REACT Center specifically is a reentry facility for people who are still in custody before they get out of custody. And we'll come back to that, but it's kind of the third leg in a 10-year, $160 million construction process where we have, as a result, it was envisioned earlier, but as a result of AB 109 and the prison realignment, we have ended up with and had a need for new facilities because we now are housing some higher level offenders as a result of the state realignment. So we have built 3 new facilities. One is basically just a new jail, and it is a traditional jail, and it actually increases our maximum security capacity, and so that we can actually more safely and correctly house more serious and violent offenders. And then the other portion that was already completed was the day reporting center, which is largely run by probation, and it has a lot of out-of-custody programs. The missing piece to all of that was an in-custody facility that would offer a lot of programs to help reduce recidivism and to prepare inmates and those who are serving some sort of a sentence to re-enter society and not come back into our care and custody. So we now have the full spectrum of the services that we can offer, and the REACT Center is truly a fairly beautiful facility, if a jail can be called beautiful, but it is designed with program space to offer education, mental health type of counseling, maybe if someone suffers from anger management and that gets them in trouble. Family issues, maybe they don't know how to deal with a spouse or with children, and again, that has brought them into our custody.
Sure.
Obviously, there is addiction and issues that we address there. And with that, because of that facility, it kind of creates a full flow where obviously they'll spend time potentially in the correct classification for their initial housing. And then once they have hit kind of the correct point in their sentence, and they have shown that they have a desire, because that is truly what's needed, they have to have a desire to not come back, then we can place them into the REACT Center, where for their final period of time that they serve in custody, they will receive various programs to help them once they get out. And then the other key component is those programs are also tied into what we as the Sheriff's Department, but also the Probation Department, offers in the day reporting center when they're out of custody. So it's kind of a full pathway, because the truth is we don't want to get them back. It's not good for them, it's not good for the community, and it's not good for our department. We would just as, quite frankly, we would just as soon work ourselves out of a business, out of a job. That won't happen, unfortunately, but the REACT Center is a huge step. It was kind of the missing middle piece, and thankfully now we have it.
It was a very good collaboration between different counties, actually, different board of supervisors that all attend. It was a very well attended grand opening, and hopefully it will help those who need the help.
Absolutely.
There was a gentleman that actually spoke about how he had benefited from the programs and how it's an ongoing struggle.
Yes.
For a lot of people that are involved.
Yep, especially for anyone who faces an addiction. I mean, it is not something that you just overcome one day and never have to address again. It is, for most of them, a lifelong struggle that we will have to be cognizant of.
Let's talk about outreach and prevention. As our county started this chapter and this mindset of focus on prevention, it mainly started with homelessness, which is something you talked about that our county and our state struggles with, but also with gangs as addiction and different crime trends that you mentioned. What kind of measures does the Stanislaus County Sheriff Department take when it comes to outreach and prevention, especially with the youth in our county?
Well, we do a number of different things. We have various managerial level leaders who serve in various capacities on various boards where we have kind of direct interactions with civic groups. I personally sit on the Focus on Prevention Advisory Council, and obviously, as you've said, it addresses initially homelessness, and now our next target audience is the families of those who have been involved with the criminal justice system in some way or another, whether it's the victim of a crime or have been on the getting arrested end of it. So we specifically are trying to target some of those and prevent them again from coming into our system. Going back to the REACT Center, we actually just had a major tour of that with the focus group so that they could understand the spectrum of services that we offer, as well as where their various nonprofits, because this is very much a public-private cooperation, where their nonprofits can plug into and assist, enable, help us in our efforts. The other thing that the other areas that the Sheriff's Department really works on, we are part of the Police Activities League. We are actually the sponsor agency for the Stanislaus County Police Activities League. We have a deputy who is assigned there as the deputy director full-time, and so that we can work with youth and provide them with various, athletic and after-school type of programs to give them a place where they can go safely, expend some energy and interact and off the streets, out of the hands of gang members. We have our Explorer program, which is designed to attract kids 16 to 21. I managed it for several years, where they come in, they go through the same background process as a deputy. They go through the physical agility test. They don't have to pass it, but they have to go through it. But then they become a volunteer, and it's associated with the Boy Scouts of America, and they get to learn what it's like to be a cop, and they experience kind of all facets of our department, and it's there. Ideally, every deputy would ultimately perhaps have started their career as an explorer. And then another thing that we did in 2014, I created a program called the Deputy Sheriff Intern Program, and it's its own classification. So after running the Explorer program for a few years, what happens is sometimes after a kid's been an Explorer for 3 years and they've graduated from high school, they get a little bored with the program because they've kind of done it all. And then they start going to college and they have a part-time job and they're sort of part-time doing a lot of things but not doing any of it well. So we created the Deputy Sheriff Intern Program where we actually will hire a kid, sorry, they're all kids, as young as 18. We will pay them. It starts at about $18.50 an hour, and they will work in adult detention for a year plus. We'll send them to the police academy, the same one that I went to, and then they will move over to operations. They'll go through the training program there, and simultaneous to all of that, they have to be enrolled in 9 credit hours per semester of college. Because our goal with this program is for those who are interested in law enforcement is to give them a place where they have a part-time job in law enforcement. We will work with them in their schedule to accommodate college, because when they're 21, we want them ready to go to be a deputy in whichever capacity they elect to serve and have an associate's degree. When we're actually in the process of maybe trying to morph the program to up the age limit, because they age out at 21, but to where they could complete a 4-year degree if they so choose and stay in that program. So far it's worked out well. We've learned some things along the way. I won't say it's been perfect, but it has been a great stepping stone to drawing more kids in. And in probably the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've gotten 4 kids to sign up for that program. Now they haven't made it through the process yet, but they've submitted applications, and I think there's a lot of growth potential in that.
That's a wonderful program.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
To get our
I'm
youth
proud of
back
it.
on track. Yeah, that's awesome. I wish more and more members of the community knew about it so they could introduce those who really don't know what they want to do. They have an interest, but it also provides mentorship.
Yep.
It also
does.
creates an opportunity for ownership of community.
Yes, it does.
Where just like you grew up here, and here you are.
And what we find is that so we struggle with pay versus some of the Bay Area agencies and
Yes.
so on. And it's not just a law enforcement issue, it's community-wide in various professions because they pay more money over there. But what we have found is that if we can recruit local kids to move into law enforcement, we have a much higher probability of retaining them for a career than if we have to attract someone from out of the area, Sacramento, Fresno, whatever the case may be. Most of them will end up going home because that's where their family, that's where their roots are.
That's right.
So, I mean, again, especially, as you talk about the civic engagement, if we can get kids who are interested in this profession, in this career field, we have a pathway for them. And we are happy to bring them on board and get them the experience that they need to move into this as a long-term career.
That's very exciting. I'm very excited about sharing that, and I know our viewers who are interested can log on the Stanislaus County Sheriff Department website and get more information.
Absolutely.
And encourage more of our youth to remain in this area and
Yes.
pursue opportunities for employment and to become, there's different aspects of law enforcement. It's not just to be in uniform, there's the administrative part.
Yes.
There's so much to learn about what the Sheriff Department
We
does.
have many, many different job classifications, from just straight civilian clerical staff to uniformed civilian staff, non-sworn staff that works in the jail and the custodial facilities, and then what most people are more familiar with is the sworn staff that they see patrolling around the county. But whether it's crime technician, I mean, we have just a broad spectrum. We have something for everyone, and we are hiring. So if anyone is looking for a job, we have one for you.
We are always here as well for you and your department to provide any cultural competency that we can. We always support our law enforcement. As we mentioned earlier, when we are in trouble, when we are in need, and when we are afraid, we call you guys, and you guys show up.
Yep.
Our first responders, our deputies, our police officers, and we really need to work more towards reducing that gap of
Yes.
creating more trust and getting to know what it is that we need to do, due diligence on our own communities, whether it's neighborhood watch, whether it's paying attention to our surroundings and getting closer to our elected officials and our law enforcement is for the benefit of all of us.
Policing is by definition a community activity. Everyone that lives in the community is responsible for keeping it safe. We are, quite frankly, simply the enforcement mechanism behind it. You know better than I do what your neighbor across the street, what is the norm for their home. If they're on vacation and there's a strange car there, if you were to call another neighbor, maybe they would say, oh, that's their brother, who's there just caring for it while they're gone, or no, I have no idea who that is. That's where we come in. But the community has to get fully engaged in the policing process. And as I said earlier, so many of these problems that we face as a community, homelessness, gangs, whatever the case may be, they are truly community problems, and we need the community to engage with us and help us solve those problems.
Thank you so much for sharing all that information and your insight. Again, thank you for being here. We do appreciate the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better.
Thank you.
We know there is an election coming up.
There is. June 5th.
June 5th is, you are running for sheriff.
I am.
Promise us that you'll be back on this program when you are our new sheriff in town.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Modem Assyrian program. In closing, I would like to ask Chief of City of Patterson Police Department, Jeff Dirkse, to say a few words to our viewers as we conclude our conversation today.
Well, thank you, Carmen. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for allowing me to be here. I truly appreciate this. And there is an election coming up on June 5th, and we are going to have a new sheriff no matter how this election turns out. And I would ask for your support, and I would tell you that the Sheriff's Department is a strong organization. It is a complex organization with a large budget and a lot of responsibility to this whole county. And that position takes someone who has had vast and extensive leadership and management experience, and to you, that's me. And though we didn't talk about some of it in detail, you can look at my website, at my Facebook, and you can call or message me at any time, and I'll be happy to contact you. So thank you, and Carmen, thank you.
Thank you. Join us next time on the Modem Assyrian program. My name is Carmen Morad.